Is this just part of getting older, or is there something I can do about it? Well, I'm here to tell you there's plenty we can do. In fact, science shows that our brains are far more adaptable than we ever realized, even in our 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. The key isn't some miracle pill or expensive treatment. It's simple, everyday habits that keep your mind sharp and your memory strong. I've spent years researching this, talking to experts, and testing these methods myself, and let me tell you, the difference is real. Just last week, my friend Carlos, who's 78 and sharper than most 30-year-olds, told me his secret isn't crossword puzzles or brain games, though those help, but a handful of small changes he made years ago that added up to a lifetime of clarity. So today, we're diving into the 5 simple habits that can help you avoid memory loss and stay mentally fit. And trust me, by the time we're done, you'll see just how much control we really have over our golden years. Now, let's start with the first habit, the one most of us overlook because it seems too obvious. But before we get there, let me ask you this. When was the last time you paid attention to how you moved during the day? Because as it turns out, your body and brain are far more connected than you might think. You see, back in my 50s, I noticed my memory wasn't what it used to be. I'd forget appointments, misplace my glasses constantly, and sometimes even struggle to recall names of people I'd known for years. I chalked it up to age until my doctor told me something that changed everything. Your brain thrives on movement. At first, I didn't believe her. How could something as simple as walking more or stretching regularly make a difference? But then I met my neighbor, Evelyn, a spry 82-year-old who still teaches line dancing twice a week. Her memory was razor sharp, and she swore it was because she never stopped moving. So I decided to give it a try. Started with just 15 minutes of gentle walking each day, nothing strenuous. Within weeks, I noticed small but meaningful changes. I was remembering little things again, like where I left my keys or what I needed at the grocery store. Turns out, research backs this up completely. Studies show that regular physical activity, even light exercise, increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates the growth of new neural connections, and can even reduce the risk of dementia by up to 30%. And here's the best part. You don't need to run marathons or lift weights to see the benefits. Something as simple as gardening, swimming, or even chair yoga can work wonders. The key is consistency, making movement a daily habit like brushing your teeth. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I have arthritis? Or what if I'm not as mobile as I used to be? That's exactly why the first habit we're focusing on is movement that works for you. Whether it's water aerobics, Tai Chi, or just walking around your living room during TV commercials, the goal is to get your body, and by extension, your brain, active in ways that feel good for you. Because here's the truth, your brain isn't some separate entity sitting quietly in your skull. It's deeply connected to every part of your body. And when you nurture one, you nurture the other. So before we move on to the second habit, which, spoiler alert, involves something you're probably doing right now, I want you to take a moment and think about how you can incorporate just a little more movement into your day. Maybe it's parking farther from the store entrance, doing some light stretches while your morning coffee brews, or even just standing up and sitting down a few times during phone calls. Small steps lead to big changes, and your memory will thank you for it. Now, let's talk about the second habit, one that's equally important but often misunderstood, especially by our generation. Now let's talk about that second habit, the one so many of us underestimate, yet it's as vital as movement when it comes to keeping our mind sharp. I'm talking about feeding your brain. And no, I don't mean just eating whatever's convenient or sticking to the same meals we've had for decades. Back when I was raising my kids in the 80s, we didn't think much about how food affected our brains. We were just happy to have a hot meal on the table after a long day. But now we know better. My friend Lorraine, who's 72 and still working part-time as a librarian, swears her clarity comes from what she calls her brain grocery list. Foods like walnuts, blueberries, and leafy greens that she makes sure to eat every single day. At first, I thought it was just another health fad, until I tried it myself and noticed I wasn't struggling to recall words as often. Turns out there's a whole field of research called nutritional psychiatry that proves what we eat directly impacts our memory and cognitive function. The Mediterranean diet, for example, rich in olive oil, fish, and vegetables, has been shown to reduce cognitive decline by nearly 35%. But here's what really surprised me. It's not just about adding the good stuff. It's about cutting back on the things that quietly sabotage our brains. Take sugar, for instance. Remember when we used to joke about senior moments? Well, studies now link high sugar intake to actual brain shrinkage over time, especially in the areas responsible for memory. Now, I'm not saying you need to give up your favorite desserts completely. Heaven knows I still enjoy a slice of pie now and then. But being mindful of hidden sugars in processed foods can make a real difference. And here's a tip that changed everything for me. Eating with color in mind. My grandson pointed out once that my plate was all beige, chicken, potatoes, bread, and challenged me to add at least 2 colorful foods to every meal. At first it felt silly, but now I can't imagine lunch without some bright peppers or a handful of those dark purple grapes. The antioxidants in colorful fruits and vegetables act like little bodyguards for your brain cells, protecting them from damage. As we age, and let's not forget about hydration, something so simple yet so often overlooked. My neighbor Sam, who's 84 and still plays chess every Saturday, told me he starts each day with a glass of water before he even has coffee, because he noticed on days he didn't drink enough, his thinking felt foggy. Turns out even mild dehydration can impair short-term memory and make it harder to concentrate. Now, I keep a glass of water by my favorite chair and take a sip every time I pause between tasks. It's become as automatic as turning off lights when I leave a room. The beautiful thing about this habit is that unlike strenuous exercise or complicated routines, we all have to eat anyway. So why not make each meal work for our brains? Start small. Maybe swap white bread for whole grain, add some salmon to your weekly menu, or snack on almonds instead of chips. Your brain and your memory will notice the difference sooner than you think. Now, let's move on to the third habit, which might surprise you because it's not about what you do, but about what you stop doing, especially in those quiet evening hours when we're most tempted to just zone out. That brings us to our third habit, and this one might be the hardest pill to swallow for some of us, but trust me, it's worth it. I'm talking about protecting your sleep like it's your most valuable possession, because when it comes to memory, it absolutely is. Remember when we were younger and could pull all-nighters without thinking twice? Well, those days are long gone, and for good reason. Our brains need quality sleep now more than ever. My brother-in-law Frank, who's 68 and still runs his own accounting business, learned this the hard way when he spent months waking up at 3 a.m. worrying about taxes and retirement funds, only to find himself forgetting client names and missing important deadlines. His doctor explained something that changed his life. During deep sleep, our brains aren't just resting. They're actually cleaning house, sorting through memories, and storing what's important. Without that crucial process, it's like trying to file papers in an office where the janitor never comes. Eventually, everything gets lost in the clutter. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Easier said than done. Believe me, I've spent many nights staring at the ceiling too, especially after my wife passed away. But here's what worked for me, and what sleep specialists say helps most seniors: creating a wind-down routine that signals to your brain it's time to shift gears. For me, it's brewing a cup of caffeine-free tea, chamomile with a dash of honey, doing some gentle stretches while listening to old jazz records, nothing too upbeat, just enough to relax, and then reading a physical book, no screens, for about 20 minutes. The blue light from TVs and phones, as my granddaughter keeps reminding me, tricks our brains into thinking it's daytime, making it harder to fall asleep. And here's something I wish I'd known sooner. Napping can be a double-edged sword. While a short 20-minute cat nap can refresh you, sleeping too long during the day, especially after 3 p.m., can make nighttime sleep more elusive. My friend Rosa, who's 75 and still teaches piano lessons, swears by what she calls her power pause. She simply sits in her favorite armchair with her eyes closed for 15 minutes after lunch, not necessarily sleeping, just resting her mind. And she says it gives her the same energy boost without ruining her night's sleep. The real game changer for me, though, was learning about the connection between sleep apnea and memory loss, something that affects so many seniors but often goes undiagnosed. If you wake up tired every morning despite being in bed long enough, or your partner says you snore loudly, it might be worth talking to your doctor about a sleep study. Untreated sleep apnea doesn't just leave you groggy, it actually starves your brain of oxygen night after night, accelerating memory problems. Now, before we move on to our fourth habit, which is all about keeping your brain engaged in surprising ways, I want to take a moment to say thank you for joining me on this journey to better brain health. If you're finding this helpful, consider hitting that subscribe button. It's completely free and it lets me know you want more content like this. Every time you subscribe, it helps our little community grow, meaning we can reach more folks like us who want to stay sharp and enjoy their golden years to the fullest. Plus, it ensures you won't miss our upcoming video where we'll dive into the foods that actually reverse memory loss, information that literally changed my life last year. And if you've already subscribed, well, you're the reason I keep making these videos, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now, let's talk about that fourth habit, which is all about challenging your brain in ways that don't feel like work at all. In fact, it might remind you of something you loved doing as a child. That brings us to our fourth habit, learning something new. And before you groan thinking about homework or complicated skills, let me tell you about my friend Henry, an 81-year-old retired mechanic who decided to learn watercolor painting during lockdown. At first he struggled. His hands weren't as steady as they used to be, and he joked that his flowers looked more like spilled soup. But something remarkable happened after a few months. Not only did his paintings improve, but he noticed he was remembering grandkids' birthdays without his calendar and recalling old song lyrics he hadn't thought about in decades. What Henry experienced wasn't just coincidence. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity, your brain's incredible ability to rewire itself at any age when challenged with new skills. The key here isn't mastering perfection, we're way past worrying about that, but rather embracing the joyful struggle of being a beginner again. Remember how excited you felt as a child when you learned to ride a bike or bake your first cake? That's the feeling we're chasing, not because we need another hobby to fill our days, but because that specific mix of frustration and triumph actually strengthens neural pathways like nothing else. Now, you might be thinking, I'm too old for this, but let me share something my doctor told me that stuck. Learning a new language in your senior years, for example, can delay dementia symptoms by up to 5 years compared to peers who don't. And before you panic about conjugating verbs, new doesn't have to mean difficult. It could be as simple as teaching yourself to use emojis to text your grandkids. Lord knows I needed help with that. Learning the names of all the birds that visit your feeder, or even just brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, which sounds silly, but wakes up dormant parts of your brain. The magic happens in those moments when you catch yourself thinking differently, like when my neighbor Yvonne started learning basic guitar at 70 and suddenly found herself hearing music in a whole new way, noticing patterns in songs she'd listened to for 50 years. That's your brain building new connections right before your eyes. And here's the beautiful part. Unlike when we were younger and had to learn for work or survival, now we get to choose what delights us. Always wanted to try pottery but never had time. Curious about those podcasts everyone's talking about? Fascinated by constellations but never learned them? This is your moment. The activity itself matters less than the act of stretching your mind in unfamiliar ways. Even switching up your daily routines, taking a different walking route, trying new recipes, or rearranging your furniture, counts as new learning for your brain. What's crucial is that feeling of mild discomfort that comes with not being instantly good at something. That's the sweet spot where growth happens. I'll never forget the pride on my late husband's face when he finally memorized all the steps to that complicated salsa move at our community center dance class. He was 72 at the time, and watching him light up with that hard-earned victory reminded me that our capacity for growth doesn't retire when we do. Now, as we prepare to wrap up with our fifth and final habit, perhaps the most overlooked yet most powerful of all, I want you to think about what's been itching at the back of your mind, that thing you've always thought about trying but kept putting off, because that very well might be your brain's next fountain of youth. And now we come to our fifth and most profound habit, nurturing your social connections, which might surprise you as a memory booster, but let me tell you about my weekly card game group to show you why this matters so much. Every Thursday afternoon, 6 of us gather in the community room, ranging from 67 to 92 years young, and for 2 hours we play Pinochle, share stories, and laugh until our sides hurt. What started as casual games years ago has become something far more powerful: medicine for our minds. Research from Harvard shows that seniors with active social lives experience memory decline 70% slower than those who are isolated, a statistic. That hit home when our group's oldest member, Beatrice, had to pause during a game last year, struggling to remember the rules she'd known for decades. Instead of letting her withdraw in embarrassment, we gently adapted, creating cheat sheets, offering reminders, and most importantly, keeping her included. Within months, her recall improved dramatically, not from any pill, but from the powerful cocktail of conversation, laughter, and feeling valued. This is the hidden magic of social bonds. Every time you share a memory, debate current events, or even just listen attentively, you're giving your brain the equivalent of a cross-training workout. Think about the last time you reminisced with an old friend about that crazy vacation in '78, or explained a family recipe to your grandchild. In those moments, you're not just connecting with others, you're reinforcing neural pathways that might otherwise fade. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but I've lost so many people, or I'm not as mobile as I used to be. Believe me, I understand. After my husband passed and my arthritis worsened, there were days when the easiest choice was to stay home alone. But here's what I've learned. Connection comes in countless forms. It could be video calls with faraway family joining a book club at the local library, volunteering to read to children at the elementary school, or even regular chats with the cashier at your grocery store. My friend Luis, who's mostly homebound at 89, transformed his cognitive health simply by starting daily phone check-ins with his old work buddies. They call it their morning coffee break, even though they're miles apart. The key is meaningful engagement, not just surface-level chatter. That's why pet therapy works so well in memory care facilities. The deep emotional connection sparks cognitive responses that mundane activities can't. And here's something remarkable. Helping others might be the most powerful brain booster of all. Studies show that seniors who mentor younger people or volunteer regularly maintain sharper memories than those who only receive social interaction passively. There's something about feeling needed, whether it's teaching a neighbor's child, to knit or sharing wisdom at the community garden, that lights up our brains in extraordinary ways. So let's bring all 5 habits full circle. Move your body to pump oxygen to your brain. Nourish it with the right foods. Protect your precious sleep. Challenge yourself to learn anew. And surround yourself with people who make you feel alive. Implement even 2 or 3 of these consistently, and I promise you'll notice changes. Maybe small at first, like remembering where you parked more easily, then bigger, like recalling vivid details from your childhood you thought were lost. Now, before we say goodbye, I have one important request. If this video has given you hope or helpful ideas, do me the kindness of hitting that like button. It helps others in our age group find this content. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. It's completely free, and every time you do, it allows me to keep creating videos that matter for people like us. Next week, we'll be diving into the 3 foods that quietly sabotage your memory. After 65, information that completely changed my diet last year. Most importantly, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 5 habits are you most excited to try? Or maybe you've already discovered something that keeps your mind sharp we should all know about? Your wisdom matters here. From my heart to yours, thank you for spending this time together. May your memories stay vivid and your golden years shine bright. Until next time, this is your friend signing off with a reminder, your best years aren't behind you. They're whatever years you're living right now, fully present and engaged. Take care, and I'll see you soon.